The storm had turned the night into a roaring wall of darkness. Rain hammered against the cracked windshield of Denise Carter's old white pickup, each drop sounding like a warning she refused to hear. The wipers dragged back and forth with a tired squeal, barely clearing enough space for her to see the road ahead. She leaned forward, squinting through the sheets of rain as thunder rolled somewhere far beyond the trees. It had been a long shift at the diner, longer than usual. The spilled pot of coffee from earlier had dried stiff on her uniform, leaving a brown stain across her apron and a faint burnt smell she couldn't shake off. All she wanted now was a warm shower, a dry bed, and a moment to breathe. Life didn't give her many moments like that. But then, through the blur of storm and night, something caught her eye. A pair of weak, blinking hazard lights pulsed at the roadside like a dying heartbeat. Denise slowed the truck, her tires hissing over the wet asphalt. As her headlights spread across the shoulder, she saw it clearly. A black luxury sedan, parked crooked, its hood open and steam rising in thin white streams. Beside it stood an elderly man, maybe in his late 60s. He clutched the fender for balance, rain pouring down his silver hair, soaking through his expensive suit as if the storm had swallowed him whole. His phone was in his hand, screen glowing dim, but he looked defeated, as if he'd already tried calling for help and had given up hope. Denise hesitated. It was late. The kind of late where trouble waited in shadows. The kind her mother used to warn her about. But as she watched him struggle to stay upright, something tugged inside her, something stronger than fear, something she'd never been able to turn off, no matter how hard life got. She rolled down her window halfway, and a gust of cold rain slapped across her face. "You okay out here?" she called out, raising her voice over the storm. The old man turned, startled, his eyes squinting through the rain. "My car, it's dead. No tow trucks are answering, and I think I took a wrong turn." Denise reached over and unlocked the passenger door. "Come on," she said. "You'll freeze out here. Get in before you drown." He hesitated only a second, then nodded weakly. He had no idea he was stepping into the truck of the only person who would change the course of his life. But Denise didn't know it either. The storm wasn't finished with either of them. The man slid into the passenger seat, dripping water onto the cracked vinyl cushions as Denise shut the door against the roaring storm. The heater groaned when she turned the dial, blowing out a breath of lukewarm air that barely warmed the space. Still, it was better than the freezing cold outside. For a moment, the two sat in silence, listening to the rain pound against the roof like 1,000 impatient fists. Denise glanced at him from the corner of her eye. He held his phone in both hands, shivering slightly, the glow from the screen trembling with the movement of his fingers. "You didn't have to stop," he finally said, his voice soft but edged with disbelief. Denise shrugged, keeping her eyes on the road as she pulled back into the lane. "Guess I did. Couldn't leave someone's granddad melting in the rain." A faint laugh escaped him, small, tired, but genuine. "Granddad, huh? Haven't been called that before." She smiled, though she didn't show it. Humor was her shield, one of the few she could afford. "I'm Henry," he said after a moment, clearing his throat. "Henry Weston." "Denise," she replied. "Denise Carter." The wipers scraped rhythmically as she drove, the truck's headlights cutting through the storm in two pale beams. The road twisted through long stretches of trees, each flash of lightning revealing branches swaying like reaching hands. Henry stared out the window, watching water stream down the glass. "I was coming back from a late meeting," he said. "Didn't expect the weather to turn like this. My car. Well, it picked the worst moment to give up on me." "Happens to the best of us," Denise said lightly. "My truck quits on me twice a week. I just threaten it till it behaves." His lips curled into a small smile again. "You're very calm for someone driving through a hurricane." "Trust me," she said. "Life's thrown worse at me than this." She didn't elaborate, and he didn't ask. There was comfort in the quiet, in the soft hum of the heater and the steady pattern of rain. When they reached the city limits, she turned down a narrow street lined with old apartment buildings. Flickering streetlights cast yellow halos on the wet sidewalks as she pulled up in front of a small, worn-down building. "This is me," she said, turning off the engine. "Storm's too crazy to leave you out there. Come inside. Warm up." Henry hesitated, polite caution flickering across his face. "I don't want to impose." She pushed open her door. "You're not. And besides, I've got soup with your name on it." He nodded gratefully and followed her inside. The apartment was small, one room, a tiny kitchenette, and an old radiator clicking like it was holding its last breath. But it was clean, warm, and filled with the faint smell of lemon dish soap. Denise tossed her wet coat over a chair and pulled out a towel for him. "Thank you," he said quietly as he took it, drying his hair and face. She handed him a steaming cup of instant soup next. Simple, cheap, but comforting in the cold. "Sit," she said, pointing to the couch. "You look like you're about to collapse." He obeyed, sipping the soup with both hands wrapped around the cup. His eyes softened, exhaustion melting into relief. "You're very kind," he said after a long moment. "Most people wouldn't do this for a stranger." Denise sat on the edge of her bed, unlacing her shoes. "Maybe, but kindness is the only thing I can give without losing anything." Henry watched her with a quiet, thoughtful expression, one she didn't notice. One that held recognition, and gratitude, and something else she could never have expected. By the time he finished the soup, his eyelids had grown heavy. Denise pulled out her only blanket and draped it over him, ignoring his mumbled protests. "It's fine," she said. "Rest. You'll need it." Within minutes, he drifted into sleep. Denise sat by the window, watching the storm soften into a gentle drizzle, the streetlights reflecting in the puddles below. She didn't know who Henry really was. She didn't know why life had placed him on the road in front of her. She only knew one thing. Helping him felt right. And sometimes, doing the right thing changes everything. Long before you realize it, the windshield glistened with a softer rain now, as though the storm had exhausted itself. Denise loosened her grip on the steering wheel, letting her shoulders relax for the first time in hours. The road stretched quiet before them, winding through forest-dark curves where only the truck's headlights dared to touch. Arthur sat beside her, still breathing heavily but calmer than before. His expensive suit had already started drying from the warmth inside the truck, though his hair remained messy and wet. He held the thermos of coffee like a fragile treasure, sipping it slowly with both hands. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It was heavy with unspoken thoughts, both of them lost in their own corners of life. But Denise couldn't keep her curiosity down anymore. "So what were you doing way out here?" she finally asked, eyes fixed on the road. "This road doesn't lead anywhere useful. Locals don't even use it unless they're trying to avoid traffic." Arthur looked down at the steam rising from the thermos, his voice softer than before. "I wasn't supposed to be here. I missed a turn." He hesitated. "Or maybe I followed it on purpose." Denise glanced sideways at him. His face showed more than exhaustion. It showed something heavier: worry, regret, maybe even fear. "On purpose," she repeated. Arthur smiled faintly. "You're sharp." Denise shrugged. "I've seen enough people on the edge of something. You can tell when someone's running from a problem." Arthur's grip tightened on the thermos. "I wasn't running." "Then what?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he leaned back, exhaling deeply. "Do you ever feel like your life is busy but empty?" he asked suddenly. "Filled with meetings, responsibilities, expectations, but no meaning? Like you're moving fast but going nowhere?" Denise blinked, surprised by the question. "Can't say I've had time to think about meaning," she admitted. "I'm usually too busy trying to keep the lights on." Arthur nodded slowly. "Maybe that's the difference between us. You survive. I only maintain." The truck rolled over a patch of gravel, rumbling beneath them. "I built a company," he continued. "A big one. People think I'm successful. They expect me to be proud. But lately," his voice cracked slightly, "lately, everything I worked for feels like it's slipping away." Denise looked at him again. This time, she saw the truth in the lines around his eyes, the quiet desperation of a man who had everything except peace. "What happened?" she asked. He tried to smile, but failed. "A betrayal. Someone very close. I didn't want to believe it at first, but I had to see for myself." Denise let the words settle. They weighed more than the storm. "Is that why you were out here?" she asked. Arthur nodded. "I needed space. I needed to think. But the storm made that impossible. My car died. My phone barely works. And then you showed up." He turned to her, studying her face with genuine gratitude. "It's strange," he said. "You didn't know me. You could have driven past. But you didn't." Denise tightened her jaw. "You looked like you needed help." Arthur chuckled softly. "And you just gave it. No hesitation." She shrugged again. "Life hasn't left me with much. But helping someone? That part one can still afford. Arthur's eyes softened, admiration flickering in them. Something unspoken passed between them, a recognition, maybe even connection. Then, suddenly, his expression shifted. "Denise," he said quietly, "what do you want?" She frowned. "What do you mean?" "If you could change your life," he clarified. "If you could dream bigger, what would you want? Not for survival. For yourself." The question hit her harder than she expected. She had never been asked that before. The road straightened before her, stretching under the dim glow of the truck's headlights. For the first time in years, she wondered if she even remembered how to dream. The hum of the engine filled the silence that followed Arthur's question. Denise kept her eyes locked on the road, but inside, her thoughts were spiraling, messy, tangled, uncomfortable. What did she want? No one had asked her that in years. Maybe ever. She swallowed, tightening her hold on the steering wheel as if it could anchor her mind. Arthur waited patiently, sipping the last of the coffee and warming his hands around the thermos. "Well," he asked gently, "what do you dream of, Denise?" She let out a slow breath. "Dreams don't pay bills." "That's not what I asked." Her lips curved into a small, bitter smile. "Yeah," she muttered. "I know." The rain outside softened into a steady patter. Trees blurred past them like shadows listening in on the conversation. "I used to dream," Denise finally said, her voice quieter, "before everything got so loud." Arthur tilted his head. "What did you dream of?" She laughed softly, almost embarrassed. "A small bakery." "A bakery?" He smiled, surprised but intrigued. "Yeah, nothing fancy," she said. "Just a warm place that smelled like cinnamon and vanilla. A couple of couches, a chalkboard menu, good coffee. A place where people walked in sad and walked out lighter." Her eyes softened as she spoke, the memory warming her more than the heater. "I wanted to call it Sweet Mornings." "Dumb name, I know." "It's not dumb," he said gently. She shrugged. "Life got in the way. My mom got sick. The bills piled up. Then after she passed, well, survival became the only dream worth chasing." Arthur nodded slowly, understanding more than she expected. "You know," he said, "some of the greatest businesses were born from pain. From people who lost everything." Denise snorted. "I'm already ahead on that part." He chuckled quietly, but didn't push back. He knew that kind of pain too well. After a moment, he spoke again. "What if that dream isn't gone? What if it's just waiting?" Denise shook her head. "People like me don't get second chances. And people like me," Arthur said softly, "forget to appreciate having one." The air between them shifted, gentler now, less heavy, almost hopeful. Suddenly, Arthur leaned forward, as if remembering something urgent. "Denise," he said, "can you pull over for a moment?" She blinked. "Why?" "I need to make a call. An important one. And I need to be sure about something before I do." His tone had changed, calm but purposeful, almost decisive. Denise nodded, guiding the truck toward a small clearing beside the road. Gravel crunched under the tires as she parked near a cluster of pine trees. Arthur gently tested his phone. The signal bars flickered, one bar, then none, then faintly one again. "Good enough," he murmured. He stepped out of the truck, standing under the slight drizzle, pacing slowly as he dialed a number. Denise watched him through the window, noticing how different he looked now. Less fragile, more like a man used to having power and losing it. His voice was muffled, but she caught pieces. "Yes, it's me." "No, don't alert him yet. I want to see the full report." "Tonight?" "Yes, tonight." He ran a hand through his wet hair, frustration written across his face. "Because I don't trust anyone right now," he snapped. "Just send it. I'll deal with him myself." He hung up and closed his eyes for a moment, letting the cold air cool the anger burning inside him. When he returned to the truck, Denise didn't know whether to ask or stay quiet. He answered the unspoken question anyway. "My business partner," Arthur said. "He's the one who betrayed me." Denise raised an eyebrow. "What did he do?" "Stole from me. Not money, ideas. Plans. Years of work. He's trying to push me out of my own company." Denise let out a low whistle. "That's cold." "Worse than cold," Arthur replied. "It's calculated. And personal. What are you going to do?" "That's what I was deciding when you found me." He looked at her with a strange gentleness. "And I think you answered part of that decision without realizing it." She frowned. "Me? How?" Arthur's eyes softened. "You reminded me what real intention looks like. Real purpose. You picked up a stranger in a storm with nothing to gain. That kind of person is rare. Denise felt her cheeks warm. Compliments weren't something she received often. Arthur took a slow breath. And you reminded me of something else, he added. What's that? That I don't want to spend whatever time I have left building things that mean nothing. His words hung in the air, deep and weighted. Denise glanced at him, confused. What are you saying? Arthur looked forward, his expression firm, almost resolved. I'm saying, he whispered, that maybe meeting you wasn't an accident. The truck interior went silent. Only the faint rain dared to make a sound. The truck remained still, the faint rhythm of rain tapping against the roof like hesitant fingers. Denise stared at Arthur, trying to read his expression. It wasn't quite a smile, but it wasn't sorrow either. It looked like a man standing at the edge of a choice he should have made long ago. Not an accident, she repeated, unsure whether to laugh or be worried. Arthur exhaled deeply, running a hand slowly across the dashboard, almost grounding himself. Denise, there are moments in life that arrive without warning. Moments that change the path you thought you were stuck on. Tonight feels like one of those moments. She leaned back slightly, narrowing her eyes. I think you inhaled too much steam from your radiator. He actually laughed, soft but genuine. Maybe, but I'm serious. Denise shifted uncomfortably. She wasn't used to moments being about her. She wasn't used to anyone seeing anything beyond the apron, the tired eyes, the woman barely getting by. Listen, she said, clearing her throat. I'm just a woman who gave you a ride. That's all. Arthur shook his head. No, you're more than that. You just don't realize it. His voice wasn't flattering. It wasn't romantic. It was factual, steady like a man stating the weather. That honesty unsettled her more than the storm ever had. He continued. Do you know what I thought when I stepped out of my car tonight? No, she answered quietly. That I'd never get out of this mess alive, Arthur admitted. Not the storm, my life. Everything was collapsing behind the scenes, and no one around me cared. No one even noticed. Not until you. Denise stared at the steering wheel, her throat tightening. She never expected that bringing someone in from the rain would matter this much. You don't owe me anything, she said. I know, he replied. That's why this matters. Another silence. The kind that stretched wider and deeper than the road ahead. Finally, Arthur reached into his jacket and pulled out a small business card. Simple, white, almost too clean for a night like this. He placed it on the dashboard between them. Carter Technologies, she read aloud. Is that your company? Was, he corrected softly. Or it will be again, if I make the right moves. Denise didn't understand. Not yet. He continued with steady conviction. I can fight my partner. I can expose him. I can pull everything back. But I don't want to rebuild my life alone. Not this time. Her eyes widened. Arthur, don't say anything that sounds like you're about to recruit your taxi driver. His lips curled into a small smile. I'm not asking you to join my company. Then what are you saying? He inhaled deeply. I'm offering you a chance, he said. One you never got. Denise froze. A chance for what? To start over, he replied. To build something you always wanted. That bakery of yours. Sweet mornings. Denise's heart jolted. Arthur, stop. I'm serious. No, you're tired, she said. You're emotional. You're probably hypothermic. But Arthur's voice remained steady, too steady to dismiss. Denise, I can fund it. She stared at him in disbelief. You're talking crazy. No, he said firmly. This is the clearest I've been in years. You saved me tonight, not physically, but in a way that matters more. You reminded me that some people in the world still act from kindness, and that kindness deserves to be honored. Denise shook her head hard. Life doesn't work like that. People don't just hand out dreams. I do, he said, when someone deserves them. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She wasn't the type to cry, but something prickled behind her eyes, soft, painful, impossible to ignore. I can't accept that, she whispered eventually. Why not? Because it doesn't make sense, she said. Why would you do this for me? Why me? Arthur looked at her with a depth she couldn't decipher. Because, he said quietly, when the world turned its back on me, you didn't. Denise turned away, staring out the rain-blurred window, unable to process the weight of his words. Arthur wasn't finished. You don't need to decide right now, he said gently. All I'm asking is that you consider the possibility that your life can change. Denise bit the inside of her cheek. I can't just quit the diner. Then don't, Arthur replied. Start small. A plan. A vision. I'll help you step by step. Her breaths grew uneven. Fear warred with longing. Hope battled disbelief. "Arthur," she whispered, "dreams like that don't happen for people like me." Arthur's answer came with quiet certainty. "They do," he said, "when someone believes in you." She blinked, stunned. No one had ever said that to her. The truck filled with warmth, not from the heater, but from a spark of possibility she had buried so deep she forgot it was there. Finally, Arthur glanced at the road. "We should keep moving," he said softly. "But Denise—" "Yes, this isn't the end of tonight's story. Not by a long shot." She shifted the truck into drive, heart pounding as the wheels rolled forward. Outside, the storm was ending. Inside, something was just beginning. The road curved sharply as Denise guided the truck through the last stretch of the forest. The storm clouds had thinned into drifting gray streaks, but the night was still heavy with the aftertaste of chaos. The headlights sliced through the darkness, revealing long shadows that stretched and twisted with every bump in the road. Denise's heart was still pounding, not from the storm, but from Arthur's offer. A bakery? A new life? It felt too big, too unreal, like someone handing her the keys to a world she didn't belong in. Beside her, Arthur watched the road with a calmness that didn't match the seriousness of their conversation earlier. His fingers tapped lightly on his knee, his mind clearly racing beneath his composed exterior. After several minutes, he finally spoke. "You're quiet." Denise let out a soft breath. "You dropped a bomb on me, Arthur. I'm trying to recover." He smiled faintly. "Take your time." "That's the problem," she replied. "Time is the one thing people like me don't have. Every day is work, bills, repairs, responsibilities. Big decisions? They don't fit." Arthur nodded thoughtfully. "Then maybe that's exactly why you deserve the chance to make one." She didn't answer. Her brain was stretched tight between fear and hope, neither side ready to let go. Suddenly, a cluster of lights appeared up ahead, soft yellow glows in the darkness, scattered like fallen stars. Denise straightened. "That's strange," she murmured. Arthur leaned forward. "Is that a roadblock?" Denise slowed the truck. No, this wasn't a roadblock. As they got closer, she could see 3 vans parked diagonally across the road. Their hazard lights blinked rhythmically, casting bright flashes over the wet pavement. A 4th car, dark, sleek, stood off to the side. A cluster of men was gathered near the center of the road. Arthur's eyes widened. "Stop the truck," he said sharply. Denise hit the brakes. The tires hissed. "Who are they?" she whispered. Arthur's jaw tightened. "I know who they look like." "Friends of yours?" she asked nervously. "No," he answered grimly. "Not even close." One of the men noticed their headlights and tapped another on the shoulder. All eyes turned toward Denise's truck. 2 men began approaching slowly. Denise gripped the steering wheel. "Arthur, what's going on?" Arthur's voice dropped to a whisper. "My partner doesn't like that I'm asking questions. He has connections, people who handle problems quietly." Denise's pulse skyrocketed. "Are you saying they're here for you?" "Yes," he said. "And I wasn't supposed to survive tonight." Her breath caught. The men were closer now, faces hidden under wet hoods, silhouettes sharp in the blinking hazard lights. "We need to go," Arthur whispered urgently. "Now." Denise shifted the truck into reverse, but a loud bang echoed behind them. Another van, blocking their exit. Arthur's hand trembled. He planned this. He knew I'd come this way. Panic swelled in Denise's chest. She had rescued a stranger, but she hadn't signed up for this. "What do they want?" she asked. Arthur swallowed hard. "To make sure I don't expose him." "And me?" she asked. Arthur looked at her with regret burning in his eyes. "You weren't supposed to be part of this," he said. "I'm so sorry." The men were almost at the door now. "Denise," Arthur whispered urgently. "Whatever happens, don't let them take me." Her voice cracked. "Arthur, please," he said, gripping her arm. "You're the only person I trust right now." Her heart pounded so loud she could hear it. The truck felt too small, the night too dark, the danger too close. Outside, a fist pounded on the passenger window. "Arthur Carter," a deep voice growled. "Step out of the vehicle." Denise froze. Arthur squeezed her arm tighter. "Denise," he whispered, voice trembling. "Don't open that door." The pounding on the window grew harder, louder, each strike echoing through the night like a warning bell. Denise's breath hitched. Her hands trembled on the steering wheel as she stared at the shadowy figures surrounding them. Arthur leaned closer. "Lock the doors." She hit the switch instantly. The sharp click of the lock sliding into place gave her a momentary sense of control, but it vanished as soon as one of the men stepped directly in front of the truck, raising a flashlight and blinding them with its beam. "Arthur Carter," the man barked again. "Open the door. Now." Denise flinched at the sound of Arthur's name. Carter? Was that a coincidence? Her mind raced, but she pushed the thought aside. Survival came first. Arthur's voice, however, was unsettlingly calm. "You recognize that voice?" Denise swallowed. "Should I?" Arthur shook his head. "Not unless you've dealt with men who think the law bends for them." Another fist slammed against her door. Denise jerked back, heart roaring. She turned to Arthur. "What do they want from you? Why follow you into the middle of nowhere?" Arthur took a slow breath, eyes fixed on the men outside. "I wasn't entirely honest earlier," he said. "The bakery, the business, it wasn't just failing because of the economy or bad luck." Denise's stomach twisted. "Arthur, it was being drained," he said. "Stolen from. Laundered through. My partner thought I didn't know. But I found proof, receipts, transfers, fake invoices." His jaw clenched. When I confronted him, he smiled. He told me to forget about it. That smart men know when to shut their eyes. Denise felt her skin crawl. "So he sent them to shut you up?" Arthur nodded. "Permanently." The men outside had stopped banging. They were talking quietly amongst themselves. Planning something. One stepped back and pointed toward the main van. "Time's up," he called. "We're taking you out one way or another." Arthur inhaled sharply. "Denise, if they get me, it's over." "And me?" she whispered. Arthur's eyes filled with guilt. "You're a witness now." Fear surged through her. One of the men moved toward the hood of the truck. Another approached the driver's side with something metallic in his hand. "A crowbar." "Arthur," Denise whispered, "I don't think we can wait anymore." He nodded. "Then don't." Denise's instincts took over. She slammed the gear shift into drive. The truck jolted forward. The man in front of the headlights leaped aside just in time, hitting the pavement and rolling. Shouts erupted from every direction. Denise didn't slow down. The truck thundered down the narrow road, splashing through puddles, the rear tires fishtailing slightly as she fought for control. Behind them, engines roared to life. "They're following," Arthur said, twisting to look out the back window. Denise tightened her grip on the wheel. "Let them follow. I'm not stopping." Branches whipped past, the forest closing in on both sides like an endless tunnel. The van's headlights swayed and bounced behind them, getting closer. "We need a plan," Arthur muttered. "Working on it," Denise shot back, breathless. A flash of lightning illuminated a turn up ahead, a dirt path leading deeper into the woods. "Take that road," Arthur shouted. Denise jerked the wheel and turned sharply. Gravel sprayed in every direction as the truck bounced onto the unpaved path. The vans were slower on the rough terrain, their heavy frames struggling to keep up. For a moment, Denise thought they might have gained enough distance, until she saw the wooden bridge up ahead. Or rather, the remains of it. A bridge. Arthur gasped. "Denise, stop." But the truck was moving too fast, mud sliding beneath the tires. Denise pressed the brake with all her strength. The truck skidded, slid, kept sliding. The broken bridge approached at terrifying speed. Arthur reached across the seat, grabbing her hand. Their eyes met. Denise whispered, "Hold on." The truck's tires screeched, and the world dropped out beneath them. The world seemed to tilt sideways as the truck hurtled toward the broken bridge. Gravel and mud churned beneath the tires, and the sudden drop yanked at Denise's stomach like a pendulum. Her hands gripped the wheel so tightly her knuckles went white, and every instinct screamed at her to stop, but it was too late. Arthur's hand stayed firmly on hers, holding her in place as their eyes met. "Denise, I trust you," he said, voice steady despite the chaos. Her pulse thundered. "Then trust me now." The front tires hit the edge of the broken bridge. For a terrifying heartbeat, the truck teetered, metal scraping stone, wheels suspended over nothing but dark, swirling water far below. Then, with a violent shudder, the tires found a narrow, muddy incline alongside the ruined bridge. Denise twisted the wheel, steering hard, tires spinning in a cloud of mud and rainwater. Behind them, the pursuing van screeched to a halt. Their drivers cursed and cursed again, unable to follow on the uneven terrain. One van fishtailed and got stuck in the mud. The others couldn't navigate the incline fast enough. Denise didn't look back. She focused on the path ahead, narrow, treacherous, but alive with possibility. Arthur leaned forward, pressing a hand on her shoulder. You're doing it. Keep going. Minutes later, though it felt like hours, the truck burst from the edge of the forest onto a paved road, slick but safe. Denise exhaled a shaky laugh, gripping the wheel, her body trembling from adrenaline. Arthur's eyes met hers. That was incredible, he said softly, awe and relief in his voice. I nearly gave us both a heart attack, Denise muttered, a small smile forming despite the shaking. Arthur leaned back, his composure returning. Not us. You. You saved both our lives. Denise shook her head. You said that about a stranger in the rain. That's all this was. No, he insisted. It was more. You didn't hesitate. You didn't calculate. You acted because it was right. That's rare. And that's why I offered you a chance before. Denise's chest tightened at the memory of his words. The offer that had seemed impossible. A bakery. A dream long buried under bills and exhaustion. You don't have to answer tonight, Arthur continued. But I meant it. I still do. I can help you start over, build your bakery, even take a stake in the diner you love. All of it. Denise stared out the windshield at the first hints of dawn breaking over the horizon, golden light spilling over wet streets and puddles. The rain had stopped completely, leaving the world glistening and fresh, like it had been cleaned by the storm itself. She began, voice trembling. She blinked back tears. I never thought something like that could happen for me. Arthur reached over, gently turning her hand over in his. Then let it. Let this be the start of the life you've wanted. You've earned it, Denise. More than anyone else I know. Her heart pounded, not with fear now, but with hope. And as the sunrise spilled over the city, casting the wet streets in shades of gold and amber, she realized that for the first time in years, she could imagine a life not dictated by survival, but by choice. A quiet smile spread across her face. All right, she whispered. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. Arthur smiled, the weight of the past lifting from his shoulders. Then let's begin. The storm had passed. The darkness had faded. And in the soft, new light, Denise Carter felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. The courage to believe that even the smallest act of kindness could change a life forever, and sometimes, even more than one. The first rays of sun reflected off the rainy day diner sign in the distance. It wasn't just a place to work anymore. It was a symbol of resilience, hope, and new beginnings. Together, they drove forward, leaving the remnants of the storm behind. And for Denise, for the first time, every road ahead felt like it could lead somewhere extraordinary.